Welcome to TONECLONERS. I am your host, Ben Craven, a cinematic prog rock artist who's keeping the spirit of the 70s alive in the context of 21st century film soundtracks, whatever that means. If you're interested in my music, please check out the link in the description below to download a free EP. But that's not why we're here. I'm here to talk about the Line 6 Podgo and a problem I've got with the input circuitry. So I've started to do a few videos recently comparing the modelled Line 6 pedals with the real thing. And one thing I noticed in doing these is that the input circuitry on the Podgo is all messed up. I've got a patch here, everything's switched off except for an amp model, which is the Princeton. A nice clean kind of setting. There is a speaker, which is the stock Princeton speaker, and that's it. They're the only two things activated in this chain. And as you can see on the Podgo screen there, the input pad is not activated, so it's a very, very basic input setting. This guitar, it's got passive pickups, Bill Lawrence, wild pickups, noiseless, going into a Boss TU2, which is acting as a buffer before it hits the pod. It's a very, the Boss buffer is a very, very common piece of circuitry. And to illustrate the point, here's the sound without the buffer before the input. The top end is all rolled off. The mids are a bit spikier. If I didn't know better, this is what having a lower input impedance sounds like. Apparently the pod has a 1 mega ohm input impedance. That's not what this sounds like. So there's either something going on before it hits the beginning of this effect chain, or I don't know. And I only came across this issue when I was comparing the pedal directly into an amp versus the Podgo version and listening to the bypass tone. And I noticed that the bypass tone through the pod going into the amp was completely different from the guitar going directly to the amp. And this is another way of illustrating it, just by listening to the output of the pod with nothing on but an amp. Let's go back into the buffer so you can hear what it sounds like. Straight away, the extra sparkle is back. Now, look, if you've got one of the newer Line 6 Podgos with the wireless input, chances are this isn't going to be an issue anymore because there is already an active buffer in that connection to your guitar before it hits there. So, maybe Line 6 has already sort of solved this problem with their new version of the Podgo. However, this is still a glaring issue for me, trying to get an accurate guitar sound directly into the Podgo. So the workaround is to use some kind of buffer. Problem goes away. But it's quite shocking, really. Anyway, I'll see you on the next episode of TONECLONERS.